On the day of the wedding, the fiancé and his mistress jumped into the sea together in a suicide pact. The father-in-law suffered a cerebral hemorrhage on the spot, and the mother-in-law was left to deal with the mess, helpless and at a loss. The other shareholders of the Jiang family were like starving wolves, eyeing the group greedily. The once mighty Johnson group was teetering on the brink of collapse. I could have simply walked away. But seeing Ryan, who had just turned 18, and my 10-year-old younger sister, I chose to stay and keep Johnson afloat, reviving the company. As the eldest sister-in-law, I took care of Lucas's younger sister. But 10 years later, James returned with his mistress and 3 children. He demanded I hand over the group. On my younger sister Sophie's 20th birthday, I booked the best restaurant on Magmile. Just as I sat down with my mother-in-law Suyuyan, loud commotion erupted outside. "Let go! Let me in! We really know them." Hearing the commotion, I couldn't help but frown. This restaurant had strict security. I'd never seen anyone causing trouble here before. The private room door was pushed open, and the person standing there was my husband James, who had been dead for 10 years. James looked haggard, much thinner than he had 10 years ago. His skin was dark and yellowish, and his checkered shirt was worn and tattered, making it hard for me to recognize him. Standing beside him was Lily, the woman who had jumped into the sea with him 10 years ago. The restaurant manager kept apologizing. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Zheng. It was our negligence. The security will take them away immediately." She tried to close the private room door. I raised my hand to stop her and glanced at my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had frozen in her seat the moment she saw James. She was filled with disbelief, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. James had also seen his mother-in-law. His eyes filled with tears, and he knelt down on the ground with his knees straight. "Mom, I'm back!" The sound of Mom made his mother-in-law's heart tremble. She stood up, her eyes filled with tears, her body trembling. Mingxian, is it really you?" The mother-in-law stumbled forward and embraced James, weeping uncontrollably. Soon, the house was filled with sobbing. I sat to the side, watching this emotional reunion unfold with a cold gaze. After crying for a while, the mother-in-law lifted her head, about to speak, but James beat her to it. "Mom, these are your grandchildren. Come on, the eldest, the second, and the third, call Grandma." The 3 children immediately stepped forward and sweetly called out, "Grandma." Seeing the 3 children, the old woman couldn't stop smiling. Good children." James, seeing this, pulled Lily, who had been standing silently behind him, forward. "Mom, this is your daughter-in-law, Xiaoya. She gave birth to my children and has suffered with me all these years." Lily lowered her head and timidly called out, "Mom." The old woman's lips twitched, but she turned to look at me without responding. Just then, the door to the private room was pushed open again. "Sister-in-law, what gift did you prepare for me?" Sophie, the younger sister, arrived before she could be seen, followed by Johnson, the second son, Jiangqi. Seeing the scene inside, Sophie was startled. "Oh, who's this little beggar? Get out of the way!" Sophie had always had a sharp tongue, and now that she was startled, she was even more irritable. She tugged at her long skirt and moved aside disdainfully. Calling the 3 children little beggars was an exaggeration, but their clothes were indeed tattered. My mother-in-law's displeased voice rang out, "Siqing, how dare you speak to your brother like that?" When James jumped into the sea, Sophie was only 10 years old, and she didn't have deep feelings for this older brother. I had been childhood sweethearts with James for over a decade, and our families had already arranged our marriage. It should have been a smooth transition, but James fell in love with his secretary, Lily. Robert used harsh measures to break them apart, firing Lily and cutting her off completely. Everyone thought James had accepted his fate. But on the day of the wedding, James left a suicide note and jumped into the sea with Lily. The wedding venue descended into chaos. Upon seeing the note, Robert suffered a stroke from the shock. While Robert was still in the emergency room, the shareholders of the Jiang family and the Johnson branch demanded an explanation from Zhang's mother. Zhang's mother, a pampered woman, was at a loss. David was so angry that he left immediately, refusing to get involved in Johnson's affairs. Without a leader, Johnson was like a piece of meat, ready to be devoured. I could have left. But seeing Jiangqi, who had just turned 18 and hadn't even started university, and Sophie, who was only 10, I couldn't bring myself to leave. In a large family, they don't cultivate useless people. At 26, I had already returned from studying abroad and been working in the family business for 3 years. But with my abilities, I couldn't handle such a large Johnson. Fortunately, Robert was rescued. He suffered a stroke and was paralyzed on one side, and he would never be able to stand again. I returned home to ask my father for help. Under the instructions of the Xing family and Robert, I took control of the Jiang family with decisive action. The Jiang family was already a hollow shell, and over the years, I never dared to relax, living and working at the company day and night, finally bringing the once chaotic Jiang family back on track. But now, James is back alive. The man who jumped into the sea out of selfish desire, driving his own father to his death and causing chaos in the group, nearly leading to the Jiang family losing control, James is back alive. Mom, it was my fault for being disobedient, but at the time, Xiaoya was pregnant, and Dad was still acting that way. I had no choice. The once spacious round table was now cramped with 5 chairs, and the 3 children were wolfing down the food on the table. Sophie pushed herself closer to me with disdain. Mingxian, Mom doesn't blame you. You've suffered so much over the years. The mother-in-law held James' hand, still immersed in the joy of her son's return. Jiangqi, however, coldly said, "Brother, if you weren't dead, why didn't you come back?" James sighed and took Lily's hand. At the time, Xiaoya and I were rescued by a fishing boat and taken to a small island. The island was isolated, and Xiaoya was pregnant. We had no choice but to settle down and have Tingting. It wasn't until Tingting was 1 year old that we learned about the news from home. He turned to his mother-in-law, "As an unfilial son, I dared not return to face you." Hearing this, his mother-in-law began to wipe away tears, muttering, "As long as you're back, that's all that matters." Jiangqi was unmoved by the scene and asked, "Then why did you come back now?" Jiangqi's words were ruthless. James hadn't expected Lucas to speak so harshly and was momentarily speechless. Lily intervened, "Lucas, the children are so old now. They should return to their roots. The children also want to see their grandmother and fulfill their filial duty." I had no interest in watching them reunite. The birthday party I had planned for Xiqing was completely ruined. I stood up and pushed the box in front of me towards Sophie. "There's work at the company. Your birthday gift." As I was leaving the restaurant and about to get into the car, I noticed Lily running after me. "Miss Xing, please wait." Lily and I had crossed paths a few times 10 years ago. At the time, the news of her affair with James had caused quite a stir. Like every other mistress, Lily had once shouted at me that the one who wasn't loved was the third party. In front of me, the legitimate fiancé, she had flaunted their love, declaring that true love was innocent. I looked her up and down. The child was dressed in a mess, but she herself was dressed elegantly. She was still wearing the same white dress as 10 years ago. Her foundation was thickly applied, like plaster. But even so, it couldn't cover the sunspots and wrinkles on her face. She had changed a lot. But the one thing that hadn't changed over the years was the mysterious sense of superiority in her eyes. "Miss Xing, back then you looked down on me, thinking I was out of my league. But now, Mingxian has been with me for 10 years, willing to jump into the sea for me, and we've even had 3 children. You've lost. Even if you two got married, what does that matter? I'm still the woman he loves most." Ha. I just can't understand why she would steal this worthless man, spend 10 years as a fisherwoman, and have 3 children. What's there to be proud of? I curled my lips. "Miss Shin, many things in this world are worth fighting for, even shit is fought over by dogs. Dogs fight over shit, but I'm human." Lily glared at me angrily. "You." But she quickly smiled again. "Ms. Jing, you have all this now because of Johnson. Now that Mingxian and I are back, shouldn't you return the car and the house? What's not yours will never be yours. Even if you've been with Johnson for so long, what can you do? Mingxian is Johnson's eldest son. You'll end up with nothing, and you'll never sit in the Mrs. Johnson seat. In my opinion, women shouldn't be so domineering. Giving birth and raising children for a man is the foundation." By the end, she burst out laughing, as if she had already imagined me being kicked out of Johnson and her moving in. 10 years can change a lot. Johnson no longer bears the Jiang surname. 10 years ago, James was naive and ridiculous. He thought faking his death would allow him to stay with his lover forever. 10 years later, he's still just as ridiculous. He thought the gates of the Jiang family would always be open to him. Looking at the ignorant and ridiculous Lily, I tried to give her some advice. I told her to get those wrinkles around her eyes removed first, or else she'd be replaced by a young, beautiful secretary before she even got to sit in the Mrs. Johnson chair. There wasn't much to do at the company, so I had already cleared my schedule to accompany Sophie for her birthday. Sophie's messages kept coming in on my phone. She complained about James, then about Lily, and said her mother had lost her mind for defending those three little beggars. I told her to enjoy her birthday and come back to school early. At 5 o'clock at the office, I suddenly received a call from David. I hadn't been back to the Jing family home much in recent years, and my contact with David had also dwindled. He asked me to come back for dinner. I've never been able to stomach the Jing family's food. Inside the Jing family's mountain villa, everyone was already seated at the dining table. When she saw me come in, Olivia Zhao Ryu eagerly helped me with my bag. "Evelyn is back. Come in quickly. Today, Charlotte made everything herself, all your favorites." I nodded indifferently. Since I took over the Jiang family, she had completely changed her harsh Olivia persona and always greeted me with warmth and concern. My half-sister Emma, glanced at me but didn't say a word. The dinner was decent. I could tell they had put effort into preparing it according to my preferences. Midway through the meal, David suddenly spoke up. "I heard James is back." I put down my chopsticks and nodded. He wasn't surprised that James had returned alive. "Evelyn, is your marriage to James annulled?" I replied, "That's correct. Back then, James was forced to marry me, and a few days later he jumped into the sea and committed suicide. Now my marital status is widowed. Even though he's back alive, our marriage has been dissolved." David didn't say anything, he just slowly finished his soup. The atmosphere in the dining room was heavy. Maybe because I was back, Lucas Jingxishi didn't come to the table and was being taken care of by the nanny in his room. After a moment of silence, David suddenly said, "Jiang family, it's better to keep the Jiang surname." I looked up at David. His expression didn't seem like he was joking. But I laughed. 10 years ago, on the day James jumped into the sea, I knelt outside the Xing family's house all night. In the end, I traded the piece of land my mother left me before she died to have him help me take over the Jiang family business. His investment in me has always been for personal gain. He didn't believe I had the capability to manage such a large corporation. After I joined the Jiang family, he openly planted spies and arranged his confidants, constantly obstructing me at every turn. All decisions prioritized the Xing family, and one project after another clashed with the Jiang family's interests, leaving me caught in the middle. I bided my time for 3 years. He treated me like a puppet on a string, to be manipulated at his whim. But once I had built up my strength, the first thing I did was cut off the projects that were propping up the Xing family. All projects related to the Xing family were terminated without mercy. His spies watched helplessly as I signed one breakaway agreement after another. I still remember when David stormed into my office, furious, demanding to know why I was doing this. I told him, "Dad, in business, we talk business." That's what he taught me. Before my maternal grandfather's family went bankrupt, my mother begged him on her knees for help. He also said, "In business, we talk business." Now that I've grown strong, I'm no longer constrained by him. I looked at David with a half smile, thinking he was getting senile. "Dad, which Jiang do you want the Jiang family to belong to?" Back then, to stabilize the Jiang family, Jiang Qi voluntarily transferred his shares to me. He was obsessed with medicine and had no interest in business. Sophie is even less qualified, she knows nothing about these matters. That leaves only James. Since you and James aren't married, let Yao Yao get to know him. I looked at Emma, who was sitting quietly beside me. My relationship with this sister isn't good, we're not very close. Since my mother passed away and Zhao Ryu married into the family, I've been treated like a non-entity at home. She's 24 years old, looks just like her mother, and has grown into a beautiful young woman. I heard she recently entered the entertainment industry and is doing quite well thanks to her family's connections. But even without considering that James has Lily and 3 children, he is 14 years older than Emma. I narrowed my eyes. Dad, she's your own daughter. David remained silent, and Olivia Zhao spoke up. Evelyn, Charlotte knows you're unhappy, but now that James is back with a woman and 3 children, the Jiang family will still be his. Your sister is different from you, she's young and beautiful. If James marries her, the Jiang family will remain in our hands. You've already gained a lot from the Jiang family over the years, you should be content. I looked at Emma beside me. Her expression was calm, and she showed no reaction to these words, as if they weren't directed at her at all. Both of them seemed to be looking out for me. But they don't seem to understand. I've been at the Jiang family for 10 years. I'm already the largest shareholder of the Jiang family. All the key projects in recent years were initiated by me. The Jiang family is already my, Evelyn's, one-woman show. These things aren't something James, the eldest son of Johnson, can just take away. I stood up and looked at David with a smile. You relied on my mother to build your fortune, then relied on me to secure the company through marriage, and now you want to use your youngest daughter to win over James? Dad, you're already 60. Can't you stop relying on women and try to fight for yourself? You. Enough of you, Suryu. After using Emma, who else is there? The only woman left in this family is you. Be careful not to end up being sold out and counting the money. But you probably don't mind, since you once climbed into the bed of a married man and have reaped plenty over the years. Be content. Suryu's chest rose and fell. She stood up abruptly. What did you say? I gave birth to a son for the Xing family. I glanced at Emma and continued, what good is giving birth to a son? Do you think the Xing family has an imperial throne to inherit? Besides climbing into bed and having children, what else can you do? Don't teach your daughter to be like Olivia, or James's 3 children will end up dead at your hands. David was so enraged he was gasping for breath. The maid rushed over and brought him some medicine. Just as she was about to feed it to him, I slapped it out of her hand. I sneered, evil deeds last 1,000 years, it's not that easy to die. The villa was in complete chaos, with screams, people searching for medicine, and David gasping for breath. I felt relieved and sat down to eat another bowl of rice. The food today was to my liking. After leaving the Xing family, there was an emergency with the Northwest project. I flew there immediately. By the time I returned to Magmile, several days had passed. As soon as I arrived at the company, my secretary rushed over to me. Chairman, James came this morning and insisted on going to your office. We tried to stop him, but Wang and Qin are following him. The secretary hesitated, and I nodded in understanding. Wang and Qin were company veterans who held shares in the group. Now that they were accompanying James to my office, their intentions were clear. As soon as I stepped onto the 22nd floor, I heard James's angry shout. This is my office. Why can't I use it? Do you know whose company this is? It's the Jiang family's. Xing Evelyn, was just managing the company for me. Now that I'm back, it naturally belongs to me. The entire 22nd floor is my office. The secretaries and assistants looked at each other, none daring to intervene. Following me up were the group's security guards. The office was in complete disarray. The documents on the desk were all swept onto the carpet. The crystal ornament I had specially commissioned from a feng shui master was shattered into pieces. And James, the culprit, was sitting boldly in my chair, lecturing my secretary with an air of superiority. Lily stood behind him, looking arrogant. I turned around, and the security guards behind me immediately understood, rushing forward to grab James. Hey, what are you doing? You dare touch me? I'm James. 10 years ago, when I was at the Jiang family, you didn't even know where you were. Over the past decade, James hasn't learned much, but he's mastered all the vulgar language of the streets. I slowly walked through the crowd to stand in front of him. He was dressed somewhat presentably today. However, his demeanor couldn't match the suit he was wearing. Seeing me, James reacted strongly. Xing Evelyn, tell them to let me go. Mr. Wang and Mr. Qin were laughing it off beside him. What are you doing? Let Mr. Jiang go. Yes, you're all family. Talk it out. Now they're talking about family? What about when James was smashing my office? I raised an eyebrow. Mr. Jiang? When did this company get another Mr. Jiang? Is it Wang Uncle's deputy general manager who wants to step down, or did Qin Uncle transfer his shares? The two old foxes were speechless for a moment. Lily ran to me. What do you mean? The company has always belonged to Mingxian. Are you trying to take it? I've never been a patient person. You destroyed my office like this, and I've already tolerated it. Now you're questioning me like an idiot. Lily, did you get your wrinkle filler injected in the wrong place? They were supposed to inject it near your eyes, not your brain. Ugh, your IQ was already low, and now it's completely gone. Lily instinctively touched her eye corner. James, who was being held up, spoke on behalf of his wife. Qing Evelyn, you're just jealous of me, aren't you? Let me tell you, in my heart, you'll never compare to Xiaoya. Xiaoya didn't do anything wrong. If you have any issues, take it out on me. I had completely lost my patience. I walked toward James and stomped down hard on his instep with my high heels. Ah! The entire 22nd floor echoed with James's pig-like screams. Open your pig eyes and look. Do you think I can't get a man like you? Every man on this 22nd floor could pick you up and beat you to a pulp. Don't you look at yourself? You're not even fit to be a prince, James. If you weren't surnamed Jiang, you wouldn't even be able to get a job as a security guard at the group. James was flushed red from my insults. He struggled to get up and hit me. These two security guards weren't pushovers. One of them grabbed him and pressed his face into the ground. What are you doing? Let him go! Lily cried and pulled at the security guard's clothes. I was headache from the noise and waved my hand, and the two security guards dragged them out. The office finally quieted down, and Wang and Qin, the two old foxes, wanted to slip away in the chaos. I called them over. Since you're already here, stay a little longer. I sat in my office chair, and my assistant and secretaries quickly tidied up my office. The two old men stood in front of me. I said nothing, waiting until the secretary had finished before pulling two folders from under the desk and throwing them on the ground. I said coldly, sign them while I'm still willing to give them to you. The folders contained the pre-prepared share transfer agreements and evidence of their dirty dealings in the business world over the years. I had already obtained the leverage against these old parasites. I was just waiting for the opportunity to eliminate them completely. Today, they had come right to me. Qing Evelyn, we're veterans of the company. I smiled without any warmth. The business world doesn't care about seniority. Don't mention company veterans. Look at that former heir apparent who was just thrown out. If you want to be thrown out too, no problem. I'll call security. As I spoke, I reached for the security intercom. You'll regret this. Whether I'll regret it, I don't know. But I know those two old fools will regret it. I gave them one last piece of advice. Uncle Qin, Uncle Li, the amount involved here isn't small. Just retire peacefully and don't risk your lives. After sending those two old foxes away, I noticed over a dozen missed calls on my phone. I called back, and Su Yuyan's icy voice came through. Evelyn, come home immediately. I have something to discuss with you. It's been a while since I've been back to Johnson, and even the maid has been replaced. The house is full of unfamiliar faces. As soon as I entered the foyer, Lily's wailing pierced my ears. I couldn't help but frown. James, Jiangqi, and Sophie are here. Sophie is holding two children and trying to calm them down. When she saw me come in, she avoided my gaze and didn't say a word. I raised an eyebrow. My sister, who had been with me for 10 years, had been swayed. Jiangqi was still the same, staying out of it. Mom, you wanted to talk to me? Su Yuyan snorted coldly. Don't call me Mom. I curved my lips. All right, Charlotte, what do you want to talk to me about? You. I sat on the single sofa, knowing that if I didn't make things clear today, Su Yuyan would keep coming after me. Su Yuyan glared at me and motioned for James to take Lily and the children back to the house. The living room finally quieted down, and Su Yuyan sighed. Evelyn, Ming Xian said you kicked him out of the company. Ming Xian was wrong to fake his death and jump into the sea, but he is still Johnson's eldest son. This company should be his. Seeing that I didn't respond, she continued. Mom knows she's wronged you. Mom promises you that you'll always be Johnson's legally wedded wife. Mom's been through it. Women may seem strong on the surface, but deep down, we all want a man to love us. Lily has 3 children, she can't compare to you. If you just soften your stance toward Ming Xian, he'll eventually be moved by you. You're so capable, you'll make an excellent wife for Ming Xian. My smile didn't reach my eyes. Mom, what if I say no? Perhaps she hadn't expected me to refuse. Su Yuyan's lips stiffened. Evelyn, don't be stubborn. Mom knows you're a kind person, otherwise, you wouldn't have stayed at our house to help us, a widow and her children. Sophie chimed in, that's right, sister-in-law. You always said you'd accompany me on a trip, but you never had time. Now you can finally go with me. As for Jiang Qi, he remained silent. I looked around at this family. Since Robert's death, Su Yuyan had been living in Macau. She had become a hands-off mother, never bothering with the children's affairs. I had been paying off her gambling debts in Macau while taking care of them like a mother. That year, Jiang Qi graduated from high school. Everyone urged him to study finance so he could enter a company sooner. An 18-year-old boy, facing his brother's suicide and his father's stroke, couldn't sleep properly night after night. Only I went against everyone's advice and supported him in studying medicine. From the time he entered university, through graduate school, and all the way to pursuing his PhD abroad, I treated him like his own mother. This year, he returned to work at Magmile Hospital, but his relationships with colleagues and superiors are strained. I've spent a fortune on equipment just to help him establish himself there. Sophie, from the age of 10, has had everything provided for by me, clothing, food, and education. I've given her the best education, hired the best teachers, and presented her with the best of everything. Without me, the Johnsons would have fallen apart long ago. Today, this family is demanding that I hand over the power I've worked so hard to earn, just to please the scum. I sighed, this is truly heartbreaking. At least, I never sought emotional attachment. Back then, to ensure I became the largest shareholder of the Jiang family and secured my position, they transferred all their shares to me, and never mentioned them again. If James hadn't returned, I could have ensured their family's financial security for life. They really thought I stayed for them, a widow and her orphan, and that marriage certificate. The business world is a battlefield, a moment of weakness can lead to eternal ruin. I have never been a soft-hearted person. From start to finish, I have only ever aimed for the Jiang family. I've known James for so many years. Though I don't like him as a person, I've fantasized countless times that he could save me and take me away from the Xing family's den of wolves. But I waited and waited, only to hear that James had cheated on me with his secretary. For that woman, he demanded we call off the engagement. I couldn't move an inch in the Xing household, with Olivia making life impossible for me. I endured nothing but cold stares. David called me useless, saying I couldn't even keep a man. Fortunately, Robert remained steadfast and insisted we marry. But on the day of the wedding, he jumped into the sea and killed himself. He didn't care whether I lived or died. At the wedding, I became the biggest joke. I will never forget the look David gave me, as if I were a worthless pawn. I knew that if I returned to the Xing family, David would eventually give me away as a gift to an old man. In this circle, no one would want to marry me. So I took a gamble. I bet everything I had to stay with Johnson. 3 months after James jumped into the sea, my people discovered that the 2 of them were still alive. They settled on the island as fishermen, and the 2 love-struck fools actually saved me a lot of trouble. I hate them, yet I also thank them. Mom, this company can't go to James. He's been gone for 10 years and knows nothing about the business. Su Yuyan snapped, he can learn. I shook my head. Mom, you don't understand. He wants it, but I don't want to give it to him. This company belongs to Johnson. Who are you to decide whether to give it or not? Su Yuyan flew into a rage, and Sophie tried to intervene on her behalf. I suddenly found this amusing and changed the subject. If you want me to give the company to him, that's not impossible. But Mom, back then, he and Lily were willing to die for love without caring about their father's life. I can't be sure James would change his mind for me. They should at least make some effort. Hearing my words, Suyen's eyes lit up. What do you want? I hesitated. I've suffered so much this year. First, let the two of them kneel down and apologize to me. In ancient times, wealthy families had a ritual for concubines. Since you say I'm the permanent wife, let's not make it too complicated. Just have Lily serve me tea, and make sure the child is registered under my name. No sooner had she finished speaking than the door to the upstairs bedroom was kicked open. You can forget it. James wrapped his arms around Lily, his brows furrowed. Jing Evelyn, my mother has been reasonable with you, yet you dare to be so arrogant? Mom, you don't need to beg her. I can take back the company on my own. James spoke with some authority. Suyen knew I held all the power in the Jiang family and tried to say something else, but he cut her off. Mom, I'm a man and I can't even beat her. Jing Evelyn, since you're being so heartless today, don't blame me for being ruthless in the future. Useless men love to make empty threats. I shrugged. I gave you the chance, but you didn't take it. Don't blame me now. James had only abandoned his grand ambitions for a few days when paparazzi snapped photos of him and Emma entering a restaurant together. When the news broke, Lily was in the middle of a medical beauty procedure, still numb from the anesthetic, when she rushed out of the operating room, screaming that she would kill the slut who had seduced her husband. Unfortunately, she didn't even get to see Emma before James took her home. Since acquiring the shares of Wang Qin and the others, there's been a lot of undercurrent among the higher-ups. The shareholders who had been dormant suddenly sprang back to life. They're afraid I'll turn my sights on them at any moment. The Jiang family is too chaotic and divided. Even the shareholders' meeting is split into several factions, like venomous snakes coiled around each other, constantly watching me. The moment I let my guard down, they'll strike. Many have been secretly contacting James. At their level, they no longer care about the group's development, they only care about their own interests. Therefore, compared to someone like me who could expose their vulnerabilities, they prefer James, an incompetent fool, to take power. A month later, at a banquet hosted by the Jing family, David pulled James onto the stage. The lavish banquet hall was bathed in the dazzling glow of crystal chandeliers, casting a brilliant light on David and James, making them look full of confidence and vigor. I stood in the corner holding a glass of champagne. Today, I have some joyful news to share with everyone. My youngest daughter, Yao Yao, has found a suitable partner. Ming Xian is someone I've watched grow up from childhood, and I know his character and personality better than anyone else. I feel at ease in trusting Yao Yao to him. Immediately, people below echoed. What a perfect match! Congratulations to Mr. Zheng. Emma walked onto the stage, linking her arm through James's, smiling sweetly. James has been his son-in-law twice. Everyone below was watching the spectacle. Who didn't know he had 3 children from his previous marriage? I picked up the champagne bottle and threw it at David and James' position. Bang! The champagne bottle shattered at their feet, splashing their pants. Everyone's gaze turned to me in the corner. David was so angry his face turned green. He roared at me, Jing Evelyn, what are you doing? I innocently blinked my eyes. Dad, what could I do? My ex-husband became my sister-in-law. Of course I had to congratulate him properly. After saying that, I picked up the other champagne bottles on the table and threw them onto the stage like grenades. The sound of shattering bottles, Emma's screams, and David's curses blended into a chaotic din. I clapped my hands and left the scene amid the chaos. The Jing family banquet's chaos shot straight to the top of the trending charts. Everyone said I was furious, and even rumors of 3 women fighting over one man surfaced. David desperately tried to suppress the news but couldn't contain it. After several days of coverage, companies like Magmile began to probe my intentions. Given the current situation, it was clear that David intended to support James. Everyone knew that my father and I did not get along, and we were rivals in business. When I took over the Jiang family business, these people tried their best to stop me. Magmile is a small place, and no one wants one family to dominate. They feared that my father and I would unite and take over the Jiang family, leaving no room for others. I have the means and the cunning to make it on my own. James, on the other hand, doesn't seem like the type with hidden motives. If he were to be promoted, he'd likely end up being swallowed up. Just as they obstructed me in the past, they'll do the same to James. Those old foxes with more schemes than pores don't want to invite trouble. I don't have time to respond to their inquiries. I'm busy handling the name change for the Jiang group. My assets cannot continue to bear someone else's surname. The name change was handled swiftly. While everyone was still focused on James and David, the Jiang family had already renamed the company to Mingxin Group. All ties with Johnson were severed. To mark the name change, I specifically convened a press conference. The recent gossip had piqued the journalists' interest in this event. Their questions were particularly intriguing. Mr. Zhang, what are your thoughts on the former Jiang CEO becoming your brother-in-law? I heard that Jiang CEO returned with 3 children. Will Emma become their Olivia? After supporting Johnson all these years, do you feel betrayed in this situation? Did you rename Jiang Group to Mingxin because of Johnson's actions? Facing these questions, I avoided answering directly. I only said, Mingxin is everyone's Mingxin. After the press conference ended, I saw Sophie's figure backstage. I didn't know when she had arrived, but she was wearing a little dress and waiting for me in the corner. When she saw me, she timidly called out, "Sister-in-law." Sophie has always been like this. After making a mistake, she would look at me with innocent eyes, and I couldn't bring myself to scold her. But this time was different. I said calmly, "Don't call me sister-in-law anymore." Her eyes quickly filled with tears. "Sister-in-law, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have helped Mom persuade you. I'm sorry, sister-in-law. Since leaving Johnson last month, I've cut off all financial support for him. Sophie, a college student with no income, needs over 10,000 yuan just for living expenses each month. The money Su Yuyan transferred to me in exchange for shares has already been spent. The first month was manageable, but this month, Su Yuyan and James can't afford to give her such a high living allowance. She probably only now remembered how good I was as her former sister-in-law. She thought shedding a few tears would make me spoil her like before. All I left her was my back. Don't say you're sorry. I was never your sister-in-law. Don't come looking for me anymore. After meeting Sophie, I immediately deleted her family's WeChat. She helped Su Yuyan persuade me, not for James' sake. She understood that making me hand over the company would bring her greater benefits. A biological brother and a stepsister with no blood relation. She made the right choice. It's just that her biological brother is a good-for-nothing piece of trash. Shortly after the press conference, I received the first counterattack from David and James. Over the years, though I worked tirelessly, my energy could only fully control the group headquarters. Branches across the country were gradually replaced with my people, but there were still some slip-ups. The Northwest region, thousands of miles away from Mag Mile, hadn't had time to replace the branch manager. Overnight, the entire branch shut down. The manager and accountant both went missing. I rushed to the Northwest region in the middle of the night to begin handling the branch's affairs, only to discover that the company's most important bid proposal for the year had been lost, and the bid price had been leaked. Mingxin's bid price was as well known as the winning numbers of last week's lottery. One crisis followed another. Several shareholders took advantage of the chaos to convene an emergency meeting. They accused me of acting arbitrarily and demanded a new board meeting to replace the executive director. As I was heading back to Mag Mile to attend the board meeting, I was hit by a private car on the way to the airport and fell into a coma. One thing led to another, and I was hospitalized without leaving a single word. After I fell into a coma, Mingxin descended into chaos. On the 3rd day of my accident, James entered the company with the 3% of shares David had secretly purchased. Shareholders began to switch sides. At the board meeting, they first mourned James' father, then spoke of filial piety and loyal ministers supporting the heir. Such a large group, it felt like a soap opera. But the outcome was mediocre. Out of 28 shareholders, only 7 sided with him. The majority remained neutral. They were waiting for me to appear. My loyal followers were either dismissed or stripped of their powers. Led by James, a group of shareholders proposed to abandon the investment in the Qingtianri project. Surprisingly, no one came forward to oppose the decision. On the 7th day after the accident, James traveled to the Northwest branch office and located the missing manager, shifting all blame onto the accountant. On the 13th day after the accident, the Ching Tian Ri project officially went out to tender. James represented the group at the tender opening. Although the internal decision was to abandon the project, they still needed to go through the motions. Everyone knew that the bid price had been leaked earlier. This competition was hopeless. Before the bidding, he chatted and joked with David, even congratulating him in advance. Their photos quickly went viral. On the night of the bidding, David hosted an engagement party for James and Emma at the Xing family mansion. The two families were now united. David did not invite any outsiders, only James' family. Of course, Lily and the 3 children were not present. Inside the Xing family villa, there was laughter and joy. I sat in the car, calm and composed, looking at Lily with tears streaming down her face. Still believe James has nothing to do with Emma? Today, James deceived Lily by claiming there was a company banquet, so he couldn't bring her along, leaving her and the 3 children at home. When I went to pick her up, Lily, the fool, still refused to believe it. James told her that his relationship with Emma was just a fling, and everything was for the company. But now, the bed photos with Emma have been sent to her, and the engagement is set. Lily sobbed uncontrollably. I thought that diamond ring was for me. He said he would throw me a grand wedding. Crying hysterically, she opened the car door and ran toward the villa. Don't underestimate a woman who would jump into the sea for love. Her world revolves solely around love. For love, she's capable of doing the most foolish things. I sat in the car, waiting for Lily to turn the place upside down. During this time, neither the Xing family nor the Johnsons came to the hospital to visit me. Even now, I admire their ruthlessness. Fortunately, I'm not a good person either. Emotional knives can't pierce me. Noise and a woman's angry screams echoed from the villa. The commotion lasted for half an hour before the sounds gradually subsided. I slowly walked into the villa. Oh, it's quite lively in here. As I expected, the place was in complete chaos. Food and cake cream were smeared all over the floor. Furniture and ornaments were overturned everywhere. James had 2 red handprints on his face, his shirt torn to shreds, hanging loosely on his body, with scratches all over his exposed skin. Not only him, but Su Yuyan and Sophie were also in a terrible state. Everyone looked at me as if I were a ghost. David pointed at me in surprise. What are you doing here? According to their information, I should still be in the hospital room, unconscious, and no one knew when I would wake up. Unfortunately, their information was inaccurate. I had been fine the whole time. I smiled. Dad, where should I be then? After looking around, I knocked on the door of the first-floor bedroom. Come out, sister. My sister wasn't stupid. She knew to hide immediately when something like this happened. David sensed something was wrong and frowned. What do you mean? Seeing his ridiculous expression, I couldn't help but laugh. Dad, are you getting old? Haven't you figured it out yet? David's expression changed, and with his cunning nature, he instantly realized he had been tricked. James, the fool, still didn't understand what was going on. He asked stupidly, Uncle, what's going on? How did Jing Evelyn end up here? The door to the bedroom on the first floor opened, and Emma walked out. Having acted for so long, she couldn't even tell if the smile on her face was real. Zhao Ryu saw Emma and hurriedly asked, Yao Yao, what's going on? Mom, I'm on Evelyn's side. Slap. Zhao Ryu slapped her face, sending it to the side, and her cheeks quickly turned red. Emma laughed instead. Dad, everything you and James have been doing lately, I've already handed over to Evelyn. Zhao Ryu grabbed her clothes and shouted. You ungrateful daughter. Why did you do this? Your parents haven't treated you badly. Emma's expression turned cold. Mom, I've lived my whole life according to your wishes. You made me learn piano, dance, and etiquette. I didn't like any of it, but I did it for you. You always made me compete with Evelyn, and when she got married, I thought I could finally relax. But you made me enter the entertainment industry to be a pretty face, all for Dad's company. You want me to use my looks to climb the ladder. The air fell silent for a moment. Zhao Ryu couldn't believe it. Is that all it was for? You ungrateful girl, you don't understand. All of this was for Lucas. Zhao Ryu's words left her completely disheartened. Yes, it was for Lucas, but why couldn't it be for me? What am I lacking compared to him? Why can't I join the company? Why can't I study finance? Why can't I do what I want to do? Is it just because I'm not a boy? David stepped forward and shouted angrily, "Enough!" Emma turned her head, wiped the tears from her face, and refused to look at them. What do you want now? Commercial crimes, embezzlement, bid rigging, leaking trade secrets, and falsifying accounts involving huge sums of money. These charges are enough to send both of you to prison. You can leave the country and never come back. Divide the Xing family's shares equally between me and Emma. You're dreaming. David was so angry he could barely breathe. But I have no intention of showing respect to the elderly or caring for the young. Dad, this is the best option I can offer you while I still am willing. After calming down for a moment, David trembled and said, "You monster, don't you fear that we'll both go down together?" I raised my eyebrows. Dad, the fish will die, but the net won't break. At this point, no one knew better than him whether I was right or wrong. He sat trembling in his chair, silent for a long time. So long that I wondered if he had stopped breathing. He finally spoke, "You're different from your mother." Of course I'm different. Good people get taken advantage of. If I were like my mother, I'd be dead by now. I waved my hand dismissively. Don't say that. Let's handle the paperwork today, and you can leave tomorrow. David froze, his face turning grim. Evelyn, Dad is willing to give you the shares, but I've gotten used to life in China. Olivia and I will go back to our hometown to live. I promise we won't. I impatiently cut him off, staring into his eyes. Dad, do you believe me? Do you believe what you're saying? His old eyes pleaded, Evelyn, can't you spare me? Dad, will you spare me after you get the Jiang family? Of course not. He'll use me until I'm worth nothing, then discard me like trash. So why should I spare him? I didn't look at him anymore. Either I go abroad and never come back, or I go to prison. He only has those two options. After announcing this, I pulled 10-year-old Lucas Jingzishi to me. Jingzishi should stay by my side. After all, he's our family's son. Don't follow them out. Forget it. My son must come with me. Subaru screamed and tried to grab Jingzishi, but I dodged her. I turned to Emma, you handle it. Jingzishi is in my hands. They dare not act rashly. After dealing with my own family, I turned my attention to Johnson and his group. The old lady froze in her seat the moment she saw James. I couldn't help but chuckle. Who said you could go abroad? When it came to Johnson, I showed no mercy. James's face turned pale by the second. Sophie and Suyin cried and begged me, but I didn't flinch. The first lesson in business, mercy shown to your subordinates is a knife pointed at yourself. When it comes to enemies, you must eliminate them completely. In my world, only power and interests are eternal. Even with a bad hand, I can still play a winning card. After the dust settled, I returned to the group. The bidding results for the Qing Tianri project were announced, and Mingxin Group won the bid. My people had already infiltrated James's inner circle. With this project in hand, no one dared to question me. Everyone involved in the James incident was expelled from the group with minimal losses. A complete shake-up from top to bottom. A bunch of fools, they never considered why someone who had disappeared for 10 years would suddenly return. The parasites within Mingxin have been eradicated, and I feel more at ease than ever before. Years of planning and lying low have finally brought me to the pinnacle. In my office on the 22nd floor, I poured myself a glass of wine. This toast is to myself.